Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sustainable Success, the podcast. Today, I'm very happy to have as my guest Doug Simmons. I recently saw Doug Simmons on social media, Facebook, some of the videos he put up and instructional videos that I was very impressed. He used excellent form and obviously was an advocate of the same sort of protocol that I encourage my clients to do. And watching some of his other videos, realized he had a great background and in-depth knowledge. So I thought, here's a great guy to have a chat with, and I'm sure we're going to hear some very interesting things about his thoughts on proper exercise, maybe his thoughts about some of the things he's seen over the years that he might want people to avoid doing, and just overall how this contributes to your health, your functional ability, your quality of life. So, Doug, I don't know you a whole lot, so I can't say a whole lot more than what I just said. So maybe you can let people know who you are and how you came to be where you are today.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you for having me on the podcast. That was a very humbling introduction. Thank you very much. I've been an exercise instructor for 15 years now. I'll be 46 in November. So I've been doing this for a good amount of time. I got introduced to high intensity training in 2001. It was actually the summer of 2000 via the Mike Menster website. So it really caught my attention that you could really train so little, but gain so much progress. So I just think it was startling because I was working out before I went to the military. I went to the military, did the same type of traditional workouts, got out of the military, continued to do the traditional workouts. Not to say that they weren't working, but they were working at a consequence, at an expense that was really beating up my body. Because I think when we're younger, we let a lot of our egos get in the way when it comes to strength training, because we think that more is better. But as we found out over the years, or if we really search deeply enough, we find out that less is more, but right is precise as far as the quality of the type of training that we do. So it is humbling. You have to really let your ego go and have an open mind. If you don't have an open mind, and that just goes for anything in life, you're not going to get too far, and you're going to keep hitting that proverbial wall, and you're not going to be able to break through it because you won't allow yourself to do it. So it was humbling, but it also made sense when I was reading a lot of Mike's writings on that website and some of the other writings from some of the other contributors on that same website, that it made almost too much sense to me, to where I was even skeptical of it, that there's no way I could train 1 day a week or 2 days a week with 3, 4, 5 exercises and make any significant progress, because I had the background that we had to work out 5, 6 days a week for an hour to 2 hours a day. So I think it was really, it was more than just eye-opening. It just opened up a whole new world on how we can approach this and get healthier, because it's not a badge of honor to have a bum shoulder or bad knees because you bench pressed X amount of weight or squatted X amount of weight. People think it's, brother, I can't bench press today. I was lifting 400 pounds and my shoulder's bad. Well, you're an idiot, because you let yourself get to that point to where you had to keep going, and you weren't doing it properly. So you can bench press 400 pounds. I've seen a lot of guys that can bench press 400 pounds that look like they don't even work their chest at all. It's genetics, a lot of it's leverage or whatever. So it was just like a reality check for me that there is another way to go about it. It's like you drive to work, you have a half-hour drive to work, but after 10 years of driving to work, you found out there's a way that's going to save you 10 minutes time. Like, wow, so I'm going to avoid stoplights. I'm going to save gas. I'm going to have an extra 10 minutes in the morning to get ready for work, or I'm going to have an extra 10 minutes when I get home because of this. But we get so, used to our own routines, it's really hard to have the mindset to come up out of that and think freely for ourselves.
Well, it's interesting you use the term badge of honor, because when I do an initial interview with a new client, one of the things that I point out is when I refer to my business as sustainable success, i.e. a program you can stick to long term, I talk about the time commitment of mainstream recommendations being unrealistic for the majority of people. But then the other part of it is safety. And I always point out that it's ironic that people don't seem to bat an eye when they're getting injured pursuing an activity that is supposedly good for them. And the injuries are rampant. And as you said, often it's a badge of honor. People will let it out in a public conversation because they want to let people know that they work out and they want to do it. So they'll say, "Yeah, my shoulder's a little sore because I got a bench press, but you know, I'm in physio right now, and I'm hoping to beat my single max when I get back next month." And I always think, almost you took the words out of my mouth. Like you're doing something, and it's hurt. If it's hurts you, you're doing it wrong, right? So
Absolutely. And I think we're so used to that mindset that, like you have to be a badass, or, you're strong and you're tough. And that's cool. Those are, great qualities, but it's, how do you use those qualities? Are you strong or tough because you have a good work ethic, because you have a strong marriage? There's other things that you could be strong and tough about, but beating up your body shouldn't be one of them unless you're getting paid to do it at a professional level. Understandable, but that you have a short duration of time in that type of profession. So it's really difficult to accept that strength training should not equal injuries. I think we've been taught over the years that, oh, I'd love to play a game of basketball, but my back's really in bad shape. I deadlifted 500 pounds the other day. So you're telling me you went to the gym to get hurt so you can't enjoy recreational activities. That's what you're telling me, which makes no sense to me. If you put them on the spot and had them repeat that to themselves, they might second guess what activities that they're doing in the gym.
right. So when you train people, you're training them once or twice a week. Is there a preference, or does it depend on the individual?
A lot of this, Richard, and you've known from how long you've been doing this for, it is really subjective to the individual. And I keep notes, and I'm sure you do, obviously. Most people that are in this field take notes because we're very analytical people that are in this type of field. We're very analytical, maybe to a fault, where we overanalyze everything because we're trying to find not less is more or more is better or less is better. We're trying to find precise. And I think that we're constantly trying to chase that dragon that will never kill because we're trying to be too exact, too literal. So it varies, and I don't think you could really put a stamp on it. I know Doug McGuff has got some good research on it, some very valuable research from all the hours that he's put in with it. You know what? It can look like twice a week. Some people have really good recovery. It could be 3 times a week, but it depends how abbreviated their program is. If it's 2 compound movements and then like a simple movement, or 1 compound and 2 simple, they might be able to do 3 days a week or every 3rd day. So that's definitely a possibility. But as we talked about before we came on, a lot of it depends on their age, their background, what type of employment that they're currently doing. So there's so many elements, but I would say at my clients, its average is about twice, 1.5 to 2 times a week. I have a couple that, depending on their schedule, if they're going on vacation or if they have something coming up, if I know ahead of time, I'll back off the volume of that particular workout so we can do that extra day.
Right.
And sometimes it'll surprise you because their body's not used to going at that, at that frequency. So it could be surprising. You could be 6 weeks, 8 weeks with somebody and see them make great progress doing, 1 day a week. You throw that 2nd day in, and it could either, be detrimental or it could be really progressive. But it all depends. A lot of it is, are they having problems at home? Are they not sleeping well? How is their job treating them? So much of it is, the frequency of this type of training, but there's so many other elements that I think that it gets much deeper under the surface than just looking at a piece of paper and say that, Mike did 90 seconds under load this workout. He's really progressed and he should be able to do, 100 seconds, minute 40. But we don't know how well Mike ate the night before, or has he been eating well this week? Maybe Mike's having some problems, some personal problems at home. So it's super, super subjective to the individual.
Yeah, that's why I know that people like Fred Hahn, you probably know of Fred, and Al Coleman. I've recently heard both of them state that twice a week is superior to once a week. And I struggle with that blanket recommendation because, first of all, is it an athlete who's playing a sport in between workouts? Is it somebody who is on shift work, or is it somebody that's going through various things? That I really struggle with the idea of having one thing. And you know that I have a client, one of my clients that has the very best results goes once a week, but when she works out, works out very, very hard. And some people, I mean, most of my clients would try to get them work hard, but I'm guessing if you're like me, that not every client goes as hard as every other client.
Oh no.
And so it varies. And also, when I hear about better or worse, I always wonder if you can reach let's say that you're going to come close to reaching 95% of your genetic potential within a given period of time, let's say a year for the sake of argument. After reaching 99.5%, after that, the progress will be incremental, right? And hopefully you can still gain, but it'll be incremental. So I think better or worse. Well, does that mean that you reach it a few months sooner or a few months later? Or does that mean you actually go beyond, where you were going to go anyways? You know what I mean? Like you continue to progress longer, more significantly. And then I sort of fall into, for most of my clients, like if you're an athlete where you're going to be competing in a realm, let's say, for example, where a split second could mean the difference between a gold medal and not placing, then those kinds of things might become important. But if all you want to do is play with your grandkids, go out and golf and age gracefully and not wind up in a senior's residence with a walker, how much do those things really matter? Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? It's I have a lot of respect for Al Coleman. I've seen a decent amount of his work. Along with the work that he did with Josh at Overload Fitness, who I talk to online about once a week. I talk to Josh about, I'd say once a week, every other week, just sharing some insight back and forth. I have a lot of respect for a ton of Josh, a ton of respect for him. I think he's probably one of the most intelligent human beings I've ever interacted with. I've seen some of Fred Hahn's work, and so those are both blanket statements, but out of respect to the two of them, that's probably information that they found along the way with their work. I'm not saying that they're wrong or they're incorrect, but these are observations that they've made through their time. Al Coleman's got very good form, by the way. You ever check out his videos? It's amazing. I've seen Fred Hahn's, and I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. But it depends what your goals are. So, like you said, if you have the grandparent that wants to play with their grandkid and do that type of activity, which is fine. You want to stay healthy, obviously. But what I'm getting at is we're super competitive with ourselves. Most of us are. And a lot of like the type A personalities, we're competitive with, we get a high school diploma. Now we want to get an associate's. Now we want to get a bachelor's. Now we want to get a master's. Like there's never a ceiling with some of us, with some type A personalities. That's how I am. So, once you get to this goal, you're trying to go higher and higher and higher, because a lot of times complacency kills, but there's got to be a cutoff point someplace. Like you're, and it sounds like you're talking about reaching like your genetic potential, which could be 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, but progress isn't always linear. So I think it's a hard time keeping clients motivated when they're hitting a compound row, and maybe for 3 workouts in a row, they get the same amount of reps under the same time under load or whatever. It starts to become discouraging because nobody wants to stay still. Well, some people do. I don't. But we look at that as a fail, as like a fault. If we keep, my compound rows with the same time for the last 3-4 workouts, that something's got to be wrong. But progress isn't always linear. So if you take that individual in January and they've been stuck at that same exercise with that same time under load, that same rep or whatever, if you go fast forward to like July or August, they may be 20 seconds better, 15 seconds better, but it was so incremental along the way that, we start to lose our patience because our expectations of ourselves or of our lives are sometimes unattainable, which is
Right.
fine as long as you live in your own little reality and understand that. So what you're saying, I'm not saying Al Coleman and Fred Hahn are incorrect, but I do have some clients that do better on 1 day a week. My 67-year-old retired nurse is going to be better at 1 day a week to try and squeeze her in 2 days. That's because of her intensity, because of her age. She worked the night shift for 40 years. So it's taken a toll on her body. So what we fail to realize at such a young age, what we do, with youth sports or military or certain professions, we don't understand that a lot of that's gonna compound on us as we get older, but our recovery is so good at those ages that we can't see that far ahead.
We feel like we're getting away with it. And it's interesting,
We are.
before we started, you said, people sometimes think super slow is for older people, but it really is for young people as well. And you referred to having a 17-year-old client. And actually, I have a friend who's been here, and I've trained her, and she does, the more traditional approach to things, and she has all kinds of injuries. And she said, and she meant it as a compliment, and I took it as such. She said, "What you do is great for old people." And I didn't think of it. I thought of a better response after she said. She says, "Well, young people are just old people waiting in line, and what you do when you're 20, like if you injure, I have a shoulder that bothers me from time to time. And I can pinpoint it to, I was doing these negatives where my partner, after failure, some of the early Darden books that really emphasize really going to failure and beyond. So I was using a barbell, and he was lifting the weight and then giving it back to me to fight down the negative, lifting it again and whatnot. And at one point, the handoff wasn't smooth. And I wasn't expecting it, and he dropped it, and I caught it, right? And at the time, it wasn't even I just felt a little twinge. It was just a little twinge. And later it was a bit, that feels, but to this day, that shoulder has been sort of a little bit of a, for lack of, not an Achilles heel, an Achilles shoulder, I guess, if you will, because it's always stayed. And I can pinpoint it to that one time. And at the time, I was maybe 35, right? And I'm 63 today, and that stayed with me. So if somebody, I have a grandson, he's 32, and he's hurt his back a few times in the gym doing squats and deadlifts and things like that. And I know that when he gets to be my age, that's going to come back to haunt him, and people don't realize that.
Well, look what they have. So we have to understand that the tools that they have around them that's giving them this information that they should be, hitting legs twice a week or doing, chest and biceps 2 or 3 times a week. There's so much influence with the social media, with the TikTok and the Instagram. So how could you not take this guy's advice or this girl's advice that's, 8% body fat, it's got, just tremendous vascularity and it just looks amazing. So it has to work, right? Because this guy or this girl looks amazing. So it has to work because they're doing this and they're putting videos up and they have 1 million likes. So before we came on, started recording, you were talking about some of my social media stuff. And I'm one person, and I understand that. And you and I are 2 people, and Drew Bay's 3, and Jay Vincent's 4, or whoever. We're a very small minority. So I'm trying to use my physique that I've worked very hard for over the years as a way to get people. I'm trying to do the same thing that the Instagram models are doing, but I'm trying to do it via super slow. I'm trying to use my physique, and I'm saying, hey, this guy over here is doing 5-6 days a week and he's squatting 2 times a week. He looks like that, but I'm working out 2 days a week and I look like this. So I'm trying to fight an army of millions by myself or with a small other group of people, trying to get people to maybe at least open their mind a little bit more. And if anything, just look into it. It does, it doesn't cost anything to look. So if we're able to get them to watch one of my videos, or watch one of your, or join Drew Bay's hit list, or whatever it is. Or get on some of these, Body by Science pages, or buy the Body by Science book. That'll change a lot of people's lives right there, because of the analytics that are provided in that literature. So, I know that I have a huge fight ahead of me with this, but I'm trying to turn people around. But I've gotten to work with some very high profile people in the professional wrestling business, that I've got to, I hate to use the word convert, because I make it sound like I'm making people choose gods and stuff like that, which I'm not. But listen, it's a hard fight for people like you and I, Richard, that we know this works, but the problem is it's the age demographic far outweighs the younger crowd that are doing this type of training. So we're in the hole.
Well, Doug, when I first started selling life insurance 35 years ago, maybe more now, one of the best advice that I got from my first mentor, my manager, he said, Rick, you don't get paid to sell life insurance. You get paid to find people who want life insurance. And
Wow,
if you think about that for a second, is rather than, if somebody is bound and determined that they want to go to the gym 5 days a week, and they may even enjoy that. I mean, I know one guy who came here and very good physique and everything else. And when I told him about being able to get the same or better results in a fraction of the time, for him, that actually wasn't a plus. He likes going to he's single, no kids, whatever. That's his hangout. That's where he hangs out. It's his social life. So that wasn't a plus for him. So I look at it and say, there's enough people who are going to want to do what we do, and other people, and eventually sometimes they'll come around after they've heard themselves enough. Because, one of the things that I found interesting is, one of the first things I ask people when I first meet them is, tell me about your background with athletics in any way, whether it be exercise, sports, or whatever, and they tell me. And they almost invariably, as I'm talking about the safety aspect and the injury part of it, they almost invariably interrupt me to tell me about their aches and pains. Or in the case, sometimes it's their spouses. My husband's an avid jogger, but he had to give up jogging. Now he's doing cycling because his knees are shocked, right? And he's gone to another type of steady state activity. And I think part of the reason why the more is better thing is so prevalent is also the confusion between skill and conditioning. Because if you want to get better at a given activity, i.e. playing a sport, for that, you do need to spend in the time, and more to a degree is better. Because, if you want to be a great pianist, or you want to be a great hockey player or a great wrestler, you got to hone your craft. And unfortunately, you can't do that in 1 or 2 sessions a week. But people confuse training in general, taking that into consideration. And of course, if they can do the conditioning part in less time, then they have more time for the skill practice, and they'll have less wear and tear on their body. I'm told that that in NFL football, we've gotten to the point where the injuries in the weight room are rivaling, or in some cases surpassing, the injury on the playing field, which is craziness, right?
Well, a lot of those injuries in the weight room are leading to the injuries on the field.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so
you have to, Richard, we're actually very, for lack of a better word, we're pretty stupid as human beings. We're dumb, and we will do things repeatedly that will hurt ourselves, and we'll continue to do them. And it doesn't have to be strength training. Just as human beings, we'll be in a bad relationship, or we'll work at a bad job, or just in general. And that carries over to anything we do in life, and it carries over, to something as small in that realm of real life as the gym. You said that person was that the client's husband was jogging and they hurt their knees, so now they're going to go to cycling because that's better for them, right? That's what they think, because they have to be doing something. So we're so just mindless when it comes to just repeatedly doing the same things that have very negative effects on our lives. And we can't stop. We continue to do that because we're not open-minded enough, or maybe we've just seen this type of activity for so long that we don't know how to get out of it, because change is difficult, because we don't want to change what we're doing regardless if it's good or bad for us. Hopefully
Right.
good. That's why you should change. But a lot of people are scared to take that new job or to look for a job because they're scared of that change. They're scared to move to a city that might be a better fit for them because of that fear. Some people are scared to get into a relationship after a divorce because of what they just went through.
Right.
So a lot of this carries over. I see so many things that carry over to strength training. And we just talked about a little while ago, we overthink some of this. You and I, Richard, probably overthink this too much, but we love it so much, and we're trying to find precise. We'll never find it, but we're still going to look for it. So we're just as guilty as some of these people in some aspects.
Yeah, we're instead of spending all our time in a gym, we spend all our time thinking about being in the gym.
Yeah. Wishing we could, like that client you talked about, they had a good physique that worked out 5 days a week. That person, we all know that friend or family member that goes to the bar 3, 4, 5 days a week. Some people go to the gym. That's their version of going to the bar, because they're socializing, they're hanging out, they're not doing anything wrong at the moment. But in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, they're going to find out that they should have been drinking all the alcohol. They should have been loading up the bar on all the bench pressing. You know what I mean? There's this effect, there's this cause and effect for everything we do in life. And there's going to be consequences to it, no matter what it is, whether you're strength training, drinking, gambling, working 3 jobs. We tend to beat ourselves up so much that I don't think we're quite open for change that's going to do us any good.
Well, I think also, and I'm pretty sure you'd agree with me, is putting exercise in its context. You exercise to enhance other aspects of your life, not to let it become all consuming and become your life. Because that time that you spend in the gym, you could be taking a course, you could be learning a musical instrument, you could be spending time with your children and your spouse. You could be furthering your career. It's all these various things that you could be doing. It's interesting. Casebolt, one of the guys, you're familiar with the Gluteator and Dynavec?
Yes.
So is it Jeff Casebolt? I apologize, Jeff, I'm getting your name wrong here. I'm having a mental block. But he gave me a statistic. He said only 15% of Americans get the amount of activity. Now, I'm using air quotes here because I don't put a lot of credence in this whole 10,000 step thing and whatnot, but whatever, they use that as a measure. And he said only 6% of Americans strength train, and of those, about half have an unhealthy relationship with exercise. And I asked him what he meant by an unhealthy relationship with exercise. And he referred to people who either spend all their time there, get injured, or in the worst case scenario, use drugs of various types in order to enhance their physiques and whatnot. You think about that, it's a weird statistic, because the benefits of strength training, even beyond getting stronger and improving your physique, are so immense, and more research is bearing that out, of how it's linked to so many health benefits. So in your time, in the time we have left, do you have some success stories? I'm sure you do, of clients that you've trained and you're really proud of, or were really inspired by as a result of things they've been able to do from just taking up 1 or 2 sessions a week of proper exercise?
My wife. My wife. I met her through doing this. So she hired me as an exercise instructor. I want to say it'll be 13 years ago. I think it's 13 years ago, like tomorrow or the day after. I know I'm coming up. I should know this. I have it actually in my file of notes, the day that I met her, because But I wrote everything down when I met her.
You know you're being
So
recorded now, right?
yeah, so like I'm being like very careful, Richard. So Richard, if I get yelled at later, I'm gonna be messaging you, letting you
Yeah.
know what happened to me. So she lost her mother shortly before she met me, and we met through who's now are both of our brother-in-law, and which I'm still grateful for to this day. Um, she had done curves and whatever, what other BS quote unquote exercise, which I like to call activities because that's what they are. My wife, because she's better at this than I am. And I'm humble enough to admit that. She is better at strength training than I am, and better is it's relative, I guess, to the movement or the individual, but she trains hard. And and I don't mean hard where she's throwing her legs up in the air and moving around like she got hit with a taser, not like that hard, but she's determined. She won't give up. She's going to go to failure, and she's going to contract and hold, all the nerdy stuff that we're talking about when it comes to super slow. So my wife is very inspiring to me when it comes to this, because she doesn't have an athletic background. I have a military and a very long professional wrestling background. So, but I'm humble enough to say that she is inspiring to me. I have a couple, they're friends of mine. They're older. They're about 59, 60, with relatively no exercise background. And they've become like family to my wife and I. And I love these two people very much. And they come in 2 days a week and they do amazing. They're 59 and 60, or sorry, 58 and 60. And they give me not me, they give themselves 100%. And to watch them come in twice a week, they never miss. Very rarely will they ever miss, if they've even missed at all. I had to check. I don't think so. But I look at them and I'm almost like scared, because I'm thinking, God, am I gonna be able to work as hard as these people in when I'm their age in 15 years? Like I have a lot to catch up to here. Like I don't know if I can keep up with some of these people, because I respect the the work they're putting in, because at my age, with the wrestling injuries and just some of the things and issues that I've had in my life, early in my life, I'm pretty beat up for the most part. And I admit that. But I see some of these other people and they motivate me. My physique may look a little different, but they motivate me. And those are my success stories, the people that make me keep wanting to do this. Even people like you, Richard, when I see people in their 50s and 60s and they're still excited about this, they still want to make improvements. Now, I told you before we came on to record, I watched a lot of your videos on Drew Base Hit List. I started going down the rabbit hole of the videos that you were putting up and some of the statistics and analytics that you were putting up on the page. And I'm thinking, you have a beautiful gym. You obviously know what you're doing from what I saw. So like, I want to be like you guys. To me, that's inspiring. Those are the success stories when I see guys like you, my wife, two friends of mine that I mentioned. That's inspiring. It's not the athletes. It's not like the famous people or that I've got to work with. It's the people that have lived quote unquote normal, regular lives, who have raised kids, had successful jobs, or gotten to where they want to be in life, whatever goal that is for them. That's what's exciting. And that's what's inspiring for me. And I love that. And I like to sit back and watch your videos. I like to watch my wife train, because she doesn't have the background that I have. She's lost her parents, her parents were very young when she lost them, and she needed an outlet. And this was her outlet. And we talked about how you were saying that, people have an unhealthy relationship with exercise. That's what my wife and I, that's like our date night. So we work out. I know it's not within the traditional super slow realm of recovery, but we do a lower body Wednesday and upper body Friday. That works good for my schedule. If I'm seeing 60 or 70 sessions a week, and those are the 2 days I have to make it work. I'm going to make it work. I'm not going to use as much volume. I'm going to do an upper lower split, so body parts have time to recover. I know there's some systemic fatigue involved still, so I may not be doing it quote unquote correctly, but it's time with my wife, and it's time to improve both of our healths. So it's that simple. And I love our workout days. I get excited for it when I wake up and I have 8, 9, 10 clients. I can't wait to get through that last client so I could meet her for our workout.
Well, it's interesting. You sort of specified there, or made a distinction about whether you were following protocol to the letter and whatnot. I've come to the conclusion after doing this. I started doing this in '81, so I've been at it for about 40 years. And actually, I'm old, and and I think some of that is hair splitting.
Oh
And what
God,
I mean
yes.
by that is I always say the biggest difference is whether you're doing proper exercise or not and maintaining it long term, or you're not. And now, having said that, if you hurt yourself, you're not going to stick to it. So that first one might sound like it's simplistic, but if you don't hurt yourself, if you hurt yourself, you're not going to continue long term for some reason.
No.
And of course, to not hurt yourself, then you could go down that rabbit hole, because doing it properly, avoiding momentum, minimizing force, all those things requires a lot of different things. But assuming, and you know what I'm referring to, we don't have time to go into detail. If you stick to something, you're doing it properly, long term, you'll be doing really well over time. And then the little bits after that, I guess they give people things to argue about on the internet.
Oh,
Uh,
gee.
but at the end of the day, uh, when you think about the myriad of health benefits, and part of what you said, I think I want to emphasize a really good point you made, is when you stop and think about frequency, volume, and manipulating those variables in order to get the better results. Is a person sleeping well? Are they having, do they have a child? Do they have a child right now who's going through depression or worse because they've been wearing a mask for 2 years, or because they're going through
Yes.
all kinds of stress, and or maybe they're just not sleeping at night because, right now watching the news is kind of terrifying, to be sure, right? So these are all for lack of a better word, intangibles that you can't, and they change from week to week.
Without going on a tangent, like you said, I know you're short on time, but you've said two things right there that the whole super slow or hit community fires me up immensely. And I have to really, because I want to stay on some of these pages, so I have to watch what I say. But the splitting hairs comment, yes, there's so much of that on some of these pages that you and I are both on. It's unreal. Like some of the comments I see about, you should do this, or don't do that, and the people that are giving you the advice are people that probably shouldn't be giving advice at all, and it fires me. God, I'm glad I'm being very censored on your podcast out of respect for you, Richard. But there's just the effery that goes on with the splitting hairs, and it kills me because the hit / super slow community they implode from within, and it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy with the splitting hairs. And so I'm gonna let that one sit where it is, because I don't want to get kicked off your podcast. Two is the intensity. Intensity is hard to measure. So some of these people that are giving said advice, they may not, it's hard to gauge their intensity. How hard are they really working? How hard are they working? My workouts are 12 minutes long, 15 minutes long, maybe 20 if I'm screwing around. But I'm going to go all out on my set, because listen, I just have 2 workouts. I'm going to make the most of them, right? I'm going to do the best that I can, because I have to wait X amount of days or whatever, or I'm only doing 3 sets that day. So I'm going to make the most of them, because my time is valuable. If I'm seeing 10 or 12 people a day, I have a short period of time. So I'm going to do it right, but I'm going to do it intensely. And it's hard to gauge intensity. So I think a lot of these people that are giving advice, I'm using that term very loosely, I don't think they've ever worked intensely. I don't think so. And the thing is, like, I'll put a video up of my work, and I'm open for criticism, because you might catch something, Richard, like, oh, Richard was right. I need to fix that. Cool, great. And I'll do it because I'm open-minded. I'm not the end all be all when it comes to exercise instruction. I'm pretty good, but we can all use some critique, and I'm good with that. But the problem is a lot of these people shouldn't be giving advice. They won't put their videos up. They won't put their pictures up. So that fires me up. I have this like intense feud with the super slow hit community. I do. They drive me insane.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Sometimes what I think I'd like to see, and some of them I see critiques that are legitimate, but what I find is that, so let's say I see you doing something, right? I watch one of your videos and you're doing 7 things that I agree with and I think are very good. And there's 1 or 2 that are not, that maybe I'm thinking, okay, maybe you could improve that. Well, I should spend the same amount of time reinforcing what you're doing right or more than spending time correcting and of course, there's an old saying, not giving advice unless it's asked for, right? So if I put up a video and I say, listen, if you think I'm doing it wrong, let me have it, right? And great. But other than that, because like just recently you posted something, you were doing the isolateral that's right beside me here. Mm-hmm. And you referred to having a neutral, keeping your head in a neutral position, which is proper. And I wondered, when I think, and it was a question rather than a critique, is neutral this or is neutral that, right? Type of thing. And again, you and I both know it's not a small, it's a fairly small point, right? In other words, that's not going to impact whatnot, but it just, because I think it's a question that you and I would probably appreciate. Other people would think, what a couple of geeks, who cares, right?
For sure, absolutely.
That type of thing, but it's also the way in which you do it. But, well, it's interesting you say people are stupid. One of the things that we're seeing these days is, and another podcast sometime, maybe we can talk about cognitive biases and how people mistake beliefs for knowledge, right?
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? When, epistemology is an interesting thing. Actually, just before I came on, I started to watch the interview that Drew just did with Ken Hutchins, the recent one. I don't know if you watched.
No, I want to see that.
Just put it up. And he started to say everything is based on beliefs, right? So what do we know? What do we believe? Well, just because we believe it, doesn't mean it's absolute knowledge. You know what I mean? You got to change your mind. But listen, I am going out for dinner later with my brother and his wife and my wife, and I'm going to get in trouble if I make everybody late. So what I'd like to do is ask, how can people reach you? How can people get in touch with social media? And when I post this, if you can send me a number of links. So by the way, I've tried to get on your Patreon thing.
I just got it fixed. I know exactly where you're about to go. I just got it fixed.
Oh, is it? Well, see, in the past, I had a Patreon thing. I was getting an error message or something, but I didn't know if it was you or me.
No, I got it. My graphic design guy, Steven, he had just got that fixed for me the other day. So I know exactly what you're talking about because a lot of people brought it to my attention. I think it was Wednesday. So I got it working. I think it was Thursday night is when he brought it to my attention. So yeah, it's up and running, but I know the issue you're about to get to.
Okay. Well, it might be me too, because I had some issues with Patreon with something else for guitar lessons and things like that. And it's a poor carpenter who blames his tools. So it's probably not Patreon. It's probably me who's not doing it properly.
No, I'm the idiot.
But anyways, yeah, if you can provide that, and I'll make sure that there's links to everything when I post the podcast and how to get a hold of you. And I'm hoping that this can be the beginning of a relationship where we keep in touch, because I think we have a lot of commonalities. And I enjoyed our talk today. I like the way you're coming from. I like your combination of knowledge and open-mindedness. So I thank you very much. And I'm going to sign off, hopefully not too abruptly, but I either got to be a little abrupt with you or my wife. And sorry, you're coming in a far second place.
Richard, thank you for your time. Thank you for having me on here. It was a privilege to be on here and talk to you for as long as we did. Go enjoy dinner, because I have to get in the shower because we're going to the Chicago Bulls game tonight, and I'm going to get in trouble too with my wife if I don't get in the shower.
All right. Let's keep our wives happy. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.